What is up, Watch fam? Happy Saturday and welcome to this week's episode of ASKTNH Live. We are live here on Instagram, so let's get into some questions about watches. All right, we'll do a quick wristwatch check before I jump into today's questions. I'm wearing a blue Rolex Daytona 1601, my first watch ever. A wonderful, wonderful watch that I not only care about emotionally, but objective value-wise. I believe in Datejust probably more so than any or almost any other watch on the market. And if you want to know more about that, please shoot me an email at info@theoandharris.com. Okay, well, first question. Freelance Drifter. How often do the watches you come across with original box or papers? How much more does that add to the value? Good question. Box and papers is a constant conversation we have with vintage watch people or consumers. One, I usually don't buy them. Usually, because the sellers of box and paper watches, I think, overestimate the value that it adds. That's number one. Number two, when they're right about how much value it adds, if it is a tremendous amount, it's just not the kind of watch I want to get myself invested in. Once you go into that very segmented, very specific, buyer pool, you're talking about, for argument's sake, a 1675 could be 13 grand. A 1675 with papers could be 16 or 15 or whatever it is. So if you're demanding an extra $2,000 or $4,000, so many of your buyers, your potential buyers for 1675 are just like, man, it's cool. It's not for me. I'll wait for the next one. So to me, that's a very, very dangerous kind of business to be in. And what kind of premiums do they come with? Every watch comes with different premiums depending on box and papers. Every watch. What are some watches with great value if you are looking for great movement case back? Pole router. Pole router is, Universal Genève pole router is probably the best value watch as far as movement in the vintage market. You've got a couple of different calibers, the 62, a few of them. I have them all, in the TNH, sold category page, but I don't remember. But truthfully, wonderful movements, in-house, micro rotor, really well finished, not only in bevels, but in Côte de Genève. It's pretty. And I think what's so cool about it, right, is that those watches were never seen, as far as the movement, by anyone but watchmakers. The owner didn't get to flip it over and enjoy it. So UG was really making it for themselves. That's a really geeky thing to do, to make a beautiful, well-finished, gorgeous movement that no one ever sees. It's pretty cool. You understand why someone does it now, why someone will do that in a sapphire caseback. That's smart, because people are going to say, like, wow, that's so sexy. But with the UG, what does that say about, the people who designed that watch? It says that they really, really cared about watches, and that's cool to me. Please find a cream dial Rolex, get the word out. Definitely, I'll do my best, buddy. Do you think the BLNR will be discontinued this year to make room for the Coke? I really don't know. How long has the BLNR been out for? Like 4 or 5 years? I really don't know. I'm interested, though. I'm not a really big Coke fan. That's funny as I itch my nose. I'm not a big GMT Coke fan. I prefer the Pepsi. I think that if the Pepsi didn't exist, I would like the Coke more. I like faded Cokes, like, faded bezel Coke GMTs. Sorry, I'll blow my nose. Hold on, guys. What do you think about Spike Lee Daytona? I don't know. Isn't he a jerk, Spike Lee? I don't really know him. He could be great. Sometimes you just hear rumors in passing. And I watched Do the Right Thing. That was he was the producer or director of that movie. I don't know. I don't know anything about Spike Lee, to be honest. He's a Knicks fan. I saw it. What's funny is, so Spike Lee's Daytona came out. It was in collaboration with some company, a very well-known custom Rolex company. And I looked at the watch. It had a new dial. It had a new bezel. It had new pushers. It had a new crown. It had a case that had been shaved with crown guards. Sapphire caseback, different rotor. Is it a Rolex anymore? You know what I mean? And it's cool. Props. I would love to have a custom Rolex. That's sick. But it is kind of funny though. I changed the crystal on my 1601, and people said, "Oh, that's a Frankenwatch." First of all, if you think that this is a Frankenwatch because of the different crystal, then I don't mean to be rude. You have no understanding of the vintage watch, market. Sorry. But back to the Spike Lee thing, I have no problem with it. I just think it's funny. It's just a funny observation. It's being sold as a Rolex, but really it's It's almost without Rolex parts. Nothing there was unchanged. So good for Spike though. If it was a dream of his, then I give him nothing but props, because everyone should fulfill their dreams. Scott's tots are the only ones that couldn't achieve their dreams. Anyone who likes The Office gets it. Thoughts on the Cartier Tank Solo small model quartz and the bracelet? Good question. I think the Cartier Tank Solo in the super small version is probably one of the best versions. It's a quartz watch. It has no second hand. I don't think Cartiers should have second hands. I think they're much more refined without them. So I put it this way. I would take a quartz Cartier without a second hand before I took an automatic with. And that's just my opinion. For some reason, that second hand just throws me off. But I'm also very, very, very conscious of the vintage Cartier look, that totally, unobtrusive, sleek design, that a second hand looks like sacrilege, So, yeah, go for it. Longines were fantastic. Yes, they were at one point. Still very cool, just in a very, very different way. What do you think about vintage Seiko? I don't think about vintage Seiko, unfortunately. It's just not my thing. Vintage Seiko. I'm not a sports watch guy, really. I think that there are vintage Seiko Marvels and vintage Seiko Sports Timers and vintage Seiko, King Seikos and Grand Seikos. Those really appeal to me on many levels. One, on construction, on value, on just obscurity, because they're Seikos rather than a Swiss watch, but still the large collecting base in the sports world doesn't do it for me. If I'm gonna go for a sports watch, I wouldn't go Seiko, but that's just out of pure taste. That's got nothing to do with it's a very aesthetic thing. Not that they're ugly, it's not my style. Thinking about a Zenith El Primero 69 for his 50th birthday, that's phenomenal. Congratulations, you should get it. It's a beautiful watch. This angle is weird since I always watch on YouTube. That's so funny. Yes, this video will be on YouTube as well as you guys are watching it. Instagram and YouTube people, follow us on Instagram at Theo and Harris, because we do these live videos 1 to 2 times a week. Sometimes when it's a party's over, sometimes when I'm just looking to give some thoughts, in the most odd times, about, a rant or about a watch release or something. The live feed ability to me is a very interesting opportunity to connect with consumers, very, very interesting. So vintage Navitimer market, don't know much about it. I know that I'm sourcing a vintage Navitimer right now. It's not something that I'm really, not that I'm not hot on it. I think they're undervalued from what I can tell, but it's not something that I'm involved in very regularly. Are you in Gary Vaynerchuk's office? Yeah, right? Look, I literally crush it, jab your jab right hook. I'm very, very big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, I actually submitted the TNH story to his new book, the Crushing It book, and they never got back to me, unfortunately. So I'm going to read the book, and I hope that every other company that's in there is better than TNH. Because if it is, then I'm props to you guys. You guys won, I lost, on this book. But if they're not as good as us, I'm going to be bitter about it. Are you a little on your history in the watch industry? My history in the watch industry, nothing. My grandpa had a Speedmaster. He's not a formal guy. He was a cab driver. Then I loved that watch. He never wore it, maybe 1 or 2 times a year. So that to me was the first thing that I ever saw that I liked. Then my dad's GMT, when I saw him open it and he cried, I said, it's not about material. He has nice things. This just meant something. So that's when I realized that watches were worth more than the material. It wasn't like, oh, I have $5,000. It was, I'm a poor kid from Brooklyn and I got a Rolex. So that was the first time that I really thought about watches as a really, really, really emotional, purchase. And then I started reading about them, and really Hodinkee got me so much into them. John Mayer's, Hodinkee video kind of validated my passion for watches as something that is acceptable by people who aren't, like me. a dorky high schooler, you know, on my computer. I was the only person that I knew that was into watches, you know, so seeing John Mayer on it, I said to myself, like, oh, he's cool, right? Like that, yeah, like now watches are cool. Now I can tell people that I like watches because John Mayer does. So that was a really formative moment. And then soon after, I didn't want to get a real job, so I wanted to start a company. And I said, okay, watches, like I'll do it in watches because I love watches. And that was 3 years ago. 3 years ago in February. So that's all she wrote, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of AskTNH Live. Follow our Instagram at Theo and Harris. You will not regret it.